EFL Chilean classes. Please give a warm applause to Professor Quiroz.
First of all, I would like to add that my research is based on my master's thesis. So this is based on a pedagogical intervention with 36 students and special education teachers at the University of Concepcion, Campus Los Angeles. The main topics that I'm going to talk about are inclusion and special education needs. I'm going to point the Ministry of Education a little bit with the Article 83 because it's diversificación para la enseñanza o diversificación de la enseñanza. Universal Design for Learning, created by the Center of Applied Technology, CAST, in 2011. And I'm going to talk about inclusive teaching methodologies using UDL guidelines, logical framework approach in qualitative research, and the reflective analysis based on the pedagogical intervention. Okay. First of all, I'm going to talk about universal design for learning as the main guidelines. There are 3 of them. The first one is to provide multiple means of representation. It means that when I explain a topic, I have to use different criteria to explain this topic because my students are different, so I have to know them a lot, and I have to integrate all my skills in teaching language in diversity. And the second, to provide multiple means of action and expression. This is really focused on students because sometimes teachers used to tend to be the center of attention, but in this case, the most important part are students. So when I provide multiple means of action and expressions, they are able to express themselves in an environment in the class. And the final, provide multiple means of engagement. This is really important, and it starts with the motivation. When I start a class, I have to focus on my students, and I have to try to give them all the skills, all the necessary tools for them to develop their skills. And how I'm going to reach this level is to motivate my students. For this diversification o diversificación de la enseñanza, Article 83, the Ministry of Education starts with different topics that teachers have to apply in their classes. At the beginning of the classes, we have to do diagnostic evaluation with our students, and those diagnostics have to be based on diversity. So my general objective for this pedagogical intervention was to integrate through workshops the principles of the universal design for learning as an inclusive didactic strategy within special education undergraduate students at University of Concepcion, Campus Los Angeles. So I train pedagogical students in undergraduate programs, special education teachers, to use this universal design for learning in their classes. And it was really challenging because they didn't know how to use English and they didn't know how to teach students. They were in second year of education, in higher education, so they didn't have the opportunity to teach real students. So I had to create an environment for them to teach. The specific objectives were to design a series of workshops that allow students to develop an English class focused on diversity. In order to reach this objective, I have to do different steps to give them all the necessary tools to give a kind of a micro-teaching lesson. In the second objective, when I said implement universal design for learning guidelines as an inclusive teaching strategy on English language teaching focused on students' diversity, I had to use all the guidelines given by the CAST and explain them to use it in their lesson plan. So the students got these guidelines and used it in their lesson plans, in their material they create, and they focus all the class in diversity. And final, to evaluate the enforcement of the English teaching strategy based on diversity, I had to talk to my students. So I talking with my students before I enter to the first class. I start knowing them and asking questions about the program, how can I help them, and all the problems that they notice before starting learning. The methodology that I used, it was the logical framework approach, and for every specific objective, I use a purpose, outputs, and activities, and I use these observable verifiable indicators and means of verification and important assumptions. So yeah, I use this methodology because I focus on a problem that I try to solve, and then within these steps, I try to achieve my goal, my general objective, but after doing a lot of steps. I started working with a qualitative research because it was the best option that I had, because I needed to know their perception. I needed to try to get into their experience and learn from them. So I used the content analysis technique in order to achieve all these goals. And, of course, I have to analyze this data. For this data analysis, I focused on three main key informants that were students that I going to teach later, because I wasn't the former teacher that they had, and former students, that these former students were like teachers. Some of them were teaching in schools, and some of them were training for being teachers. And the other one was the teacher involved in the subject at the beginning. So I gathered one group of students, 36, and she gathered another 36. And she continued working with their students in their methodology. And I changed the methodology into something different by working with kind of workshops during the classes and try to use the universal design for learning in their lesson plan. So I changed all the curricula, and it was really, really good for me to do that. And I could have done it before, but now that I'm working at the university, they gave me the opportunity to change all the curricula, because this is one of the things that are really, really difficult to get the permission to change the program and doing something different. Because sometimes universities don't like to change the programs because they always think that they are doing all great and nothing's wrong. But after doing this kind of research, I could realize that there are a lot of different things that I could change, and all of us could change. And we have to be very careful sometimes when trying to change the things. But if we are focused on something, we have to try to do it, because it's the best for changing the way in which we teach. So for this, I talk with my students using two data collection techniques. The first one, it was a semi-structured interview that I used with a teacher and the former students, because it was individual. I talk with different students, former students individually, and I talk with the teacher individually. But I used the focus group for the students of the subject. The English one was the first subject. So yeah, I talked with them, and I gathered the information using triangulation and cross-verification of the evidence throughout the whole research. And I crossed the verification of the first diagnostic and the final analysis. So that was my main point. The first focus and the second focus group was the information that I used. The results were really good. After triangulation and cross-verification of the collected evidence in the focus group and 2, categories and subcategories emerged. In these categories, 3 were the main important. The first one was the class methodology, and I'm going to try to talk a little more about this, the class methodology. Because they used to have the simple or the most common methodology used by all teachers, which is passive methodology. The teacher stands here and start talking all the time, and students take notes and look at the whiteboard and stand in this in this position. Like I'm here and you are talking or listening to me. But I changed this into something active. How? During this workshop. In their workshops, students have to develop 3 different steps. The first one, I gave them a lot of material for them to analyze in groups. So this structure of classroom was nothing that I used. It was something totally different. I changed this and I gathered students into groups and they had to analyze papers, documents from the Ministry of Education, planes y programas, marco para la buena enseñanza, Universal Design for Learning guidelines, and different papers for different authors related to diversity and how to include diversity in classes. So after the analysis on the group, they try to explain to other classmates the things that they learned from the papers, from the different documents that I gave them. And it was really good because they understood one thing and then the other groups understood other things. And then we gather all the information and we have something totally different. So I collected all the information and then we create a kind of analysis as a group of class. So I try to give as much as I can in documents, and they analyze and they explain in different presentations to the group. So they work all the time, and I was like kind of a guidance. I was like there passing through the group, just looking them to work. And what I was really focused on, it was horizontality in education, because I don't know, in school it's different, but when you go to the university, teachers like me or other, like we are like in a different position. Or this is the conception that the people have, like teacher and students, and I think it should be like this, because I learn from my students and they learn from me. So if I give them all the respect that they deserve, and they give me respect in return by doing or staying at the same level position, I think it's great. So I can work with them and they can work with me. And together we create something different. So in the university, when you teach at the university, students sometimes are afraid to talk with the teacher, or they look at the teacher like something, oh, okay, I'm not going to bother the teacher because maybe it's going to punish me later. But no, you have to change that state of mind into something different, because now we have to be more open-minded in these kind of things. If you have respect with your students by having a horizontality relationship, I think you are going to obtain better results than having you in this position and your students here. And by using C material based on UDL guidelines, students' education needs are one thing. When I have students with problems or with disabilities, I have to focus my class on them, because I need to point the disability that these people have. But all my students are diverse. All my students learn differently. So if I focus on every student, I try to know them better instead of say one student, 2 or 3, and I know their names because I'm awful at names, but I try to remember all the time my name's students. And if I adapt my class into something diverse instead of just special education needs, because sometimes we focus on only people with disabilities, but what happens with the other students? How can we reach those students' needs? Because all have needs in different positions. So after this, motivation, real learning, self-perspective, and confidence. With the horizontality, they got motivation, real learning, and self-perspective, and all those increased a lot. The expectations, they try to work on diversity using Universal Design for Learning in micro-teachings, and it was really helpful for them, because they try to understand how a class is made, how can you teach students, and it was really important. And I would like to focus on some students' comments, because in the first diagnostic, in the diagnostic focus group 1, they said, se tendría que dar cuenta de cómo aprendemos nosotros en el grupo. Quizás no a todos los grupos nos tendrían que enseñar de la misma manera. No todos vamos a aprender igual. Tal vez a otro les sirve su metodología, pero a nosotros por lo menos no. Me gustaría que el ramo sea más enfocado a la didáctica. Estamos hablando de estudiantes que están aprendiendo a ser profesores de educación diferencial. Más que enseñarle a una persona común y corriente a conversar con alguien en inglés. ¿Sabe? A mí me pasa que estoy mirando la hora y pienso que queda harto tiempo para terminar la clase y los minutos se me hacen enteros. Those were the first comments. But after doing this research, I got... Pero ahora, el llegar a clase y ser libre de pensar a tu manera, give them freedom to think. Y buscar la alternativa y todo lo que tú querías hacer fue muy diferente y eso se notó. El cambio fue bueno. Además tuvimos que practicar para la clase y nos permitió equivocarnos. Porque si nos equivocábamos no pasaba nada, porque volvíamos a hacer de nuevo el material, volvíamos a reconstruir un punto, pero no iba a pasar nada si nos equivocábamos o pronunciábamos algo mal. Ellos estaban escribiendo inglés. Aprendimos de los errores. Yo creo que todo eso fue lo mejor porque se nos dio la libertad para equivocarnos y para hacer más cosas. So after I analyzed those results, it was really I don't know how to say, it was really worth it for me to do these kind of activities with students. As a reflective analysis, my reflective analysis after this workshop or this whole research, it was workshops and micro teachings when training future teachers are the best way for them to learn how to teach. Because sometimes they don't have the opportunity to go to classes or practices, and they have to wait 4 years to have the first impact with real students. Guide them, evaluate them, and give positive feedbacks all the time. This is a kind of a circle. You guide your students, you evaluate your students, and you give positive feedbacks every class. Do not focus on contents only, because teachers tend to give a lot of contents to our students, but sometimes to develop abilities, skills for them to do this, it's more important than just giving contents. Give them control freedom, because when you have all the control, like the teacher has all the control in the class, it's boring for students. If they know that they have to start learning by their own, it's better. They have to find the way to teach. They are not going to copy your own way to teach. They have to find their own way to teach. And when given freedom, it's the only way they have to think and understand if they are doing great or not. And use universal disciple learning guidelines in lesson plans, included in the lesson plan at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, with different activities to focus on students' diversity, not only students with special needs. I mean, they are really important in our class, but we have to focus on all our students, not 2 or 3. If we try to create a class focused on diversity, it's going to be really good. And create material based on diversity. And, of course, know your students' abilities and allow them to make mistakes. If, from the beginning of the class, you say that mistakes are allowed and not punished by the teacher, your students are going to be free, in a controlled space. And they are going to analyze in their minds, and they are going to learn at their own pace. So that's the thing that I wanted to say. That's it. I'm ready.
Thank you very much, Professor Quiroz. Now it's a moment for questions coming from the attendees. Here's the first question.
You said about the student diversity.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
You said about the student diversity.
Mm-hmm.
We all have special needs in learning, but how do you aim your lesson to those advanced students? Because there are some schools that have divided as
elementary, intermediate,
and advanced. Because we all have to tend to tweak our lessons to disabled or special needs students, and also we tend to decrease the level of our lesson to cover those students.
I think the best way to focus on those students, in my case, I could say that if they are kind of tutors for their peers, they are going to feel engaged with the class, and they are going to teach their peers the way maybe they learn. And sometimes when you have a unskilled student in class and you don't know how to keep them like in that positioning, it's better if you influence this student and give another task in class. For example, tutoring, or for example, explain a context. You can give a corner in a classroom, and this student could be like kind of a tutor with 2 or 3 students, and you can focus on the other students, and you go there, and sometimes students are going to ask a question and you can be involved. But those students who are like, we have more skills, are kind of tutors in class. I think it's one way to solve.
Okay, thanks, but in the case of those schools that are divided,
when you have like one group of students?
In my case, I have the advanced
students.
Advanced class in the whole class.
And so they are able to speak in English all the time, and you can sometimes you can give them like kind of a challenges for them, because if they are more like advanced, they are going to try to know how to reach how to answer the questions that you are going to plan. Sometimes it's really good for students who are really in a high level. Try to give them problem-based activities are really challenging for them, and they try to, it's a kind of a game for them when they try to achieve the goals that you need. If they are more advanced, they are going to try to advance more. So if you increase them, the level in the question and they have to try to find the solution, I think it's better for them. But kind of a challenge. Challenge students. Give them a problem-based task, or give them a kind of a work for them to work with technology is the other way. There are a lot of softwares that I use sometimes in classes that I can use with all my students. But when I use those software with advanced students, they get more involved because they can listen, they can speak, they can do different activities. And sometimes give them extra tasks for them to practice at home sometimes. Because I give all my material. I'm really good for sharing my material. Sometimes teachers don't want to share the materials, but if you have more advanced students, you can do that with them as well.
Thank you.
Another question from the attendees.
Hi, first of all, thank you for your presentation. It's really interesting. And can you recall any experience from the market teaching of your students that you can share with us?
Yeah, and it's hilarious that you focus on that, because for me it was disappointing in one way, because I was doing my master's thesis with this. But I recorded every presentation, every micro teaching that my students did. But then the camera was stolen, so I lost everything. Like the recordings, I stole everything. So it was pretty bad for me. But I have a backup plan, so I have all the worksheets and the evaluation plans and everything, so it wasn't a problem for me, but it was really bad for the experience. But it was one experience that it was really good, and I was amazed by the level of the students and how they could connect the ideas and everything. And they were trying to explain the difference between have and has. They were, I gave them like fourth grade, elementary, I think. And they create a lot of material with recycled things. And they use really good vocabulary when speaking. They didn't read anything. They really prepared the micro teaching. It was 10-minute lesson. And it was really, really engaging. So I have all my students sitting on the floor because they were on the floor like playing like being kids. And the students were doing the class. And it was, they started by taking out something from a box. And it was nothing related to the topic, but then they had this vision to connect the topic with the thing that we got from the box. And it was, oh my God, I never thought that they were doing that kind of thing because I never teach them that. They were able to create their own methodology of teaching, and it was really amazing. And they